I know. Oh, and here we are. We're live. All of a sudden, here we are. Hello, everyone. And if you are watching this live, I don't think we have anyone here yet, but just in case, welcome. If you're watching this back later on, welcome still. And I'm not really excited to talk about Miss Pringle. I'm excited to spend time with all of you. And I just want to say, give an extra big welcome to Angie. So Angie, it's so lovely to have you here with our group again.
Thank you. It's really good to be back.
Yes. So
The original
I was,
gang.
yes, the original gang. Like we're back in Mitford.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm so happy that the internet worked out. And hi to
Yes.
Elizabeth Brink in the comments.
Yay.
Elizabeth, I feel like is the most faithful attendee of these. Oh, Rainy is frozen. That is unfortunate. Oh, I think she's back. Yes.
Oh, was that me?
Yeah, just for a minute you were frozen.
Okay.
And you were frozen like this.
That tracks. That's my general look, so that's fine.
Elizabeth says, "Thank you very much." That's like, have you ever seen a clip of the Sally Fields Oscar speech? And she says, "You like me. You really like me." It's very endearing. Yeah. So, Mrs. Pringle, A Fairacre. I was looking at the title from afar because it was on that shelf as I was making the title for this. And I said, I thought the title was Mrs. Pringle, A Fairacre, but when I saw just this, I thought that was the title. So that's why I didn't write A Fairacre. Anyhow, that's beside the point. Okay, here's what could have made me get on board with this book. Mrs. Pringle has a tragic backstory. She had like a father that beat her, or she had a sibling die of influenza, and she had a twin die of influenza. You know, something catastrophic happened in her life. And no, nothing. She was just really intense from the beginning. And she, like, I feel like she is like Mary Lennox in The Secret Garden. If she had just like she did in the beginning. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like right now she's definitely she annoys me a lot more than Emma from the Mitford series.
Oh,
So
okay.
yes, because Emma, at least, like, you know, she has some like drama in her personal life, whereas Mrs. Pringle, it's not anything like in her life. And if we have to hear about Minnie Pringle one more time, I'm gonna scream. I'm so tired of that character.
I am too.
So I'm coming on here grumpy because I read this in a day because I was like, I cannot let it ruin more than one day. And then I finished the second half of The Way of All Flesh, the Victorian novel that ruined my life today. So I just need some good reading after this.
You need to read a Betsy Tacy tomorrow just to make yourself happy.
Emily of Deep Valley.
Ever.
Yes.
Although I lent out Emily of Deep Valley like a fool.
Oh, no.
And I don't want to be aggressive about asking for it back. Because this person genuinely, I know she'll love it.
Yeah.
And she's a very busy single mom. So I'm like, I'm going to be extra like low key. And it's not like an out of print book. If the worst came to worst, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this read always has beautiful writing. So there is always that kind of redeems it. Thank you, Elizabeth, for attending my pity party.
We're just all laughing at her, but
yeah. Harassed by Mrs. Pringle. I'm trying to think. There were a couple of passages that I noted, and of course, now that I'm looking, I can't find them. So I will just come back to those later. Rainy, I will ask it. Who's there's like a very large motorcycle or something.
oh, that was you. Okay.
Oh, Angie. You don't have to mute yourself. I was just like, what is it driving in someone's house? Elizabeth says a couple bad books can get one down. That sounds like a Jane Austen quote.
It does.
I love it. Oh, you're still muted.
Oh, Angie, you're muted.
You're muted. She's playing charades.
Am I muted?
Yep,
Not
you're good
anymore.
now.
Okay. Oh, I was just going to say my bedroom window is like 6 inches from the road. And for some reason, this is a really heavily trafficked road. It's not like a main road, but it's so yeah. Like there's a neighbor two doors down. They start their tractor at 4:30 in the morning,
Oh,
and like it's yeah. So I'm awake by 4:30. So there will be a lot of noise. Sorry.
Don't apologize. It just like caught me off guard. And Sharon is here. Hi, Sharon.
Hey,
Welcome. Okay, Rainey. So I saw on Goodreads you gave this 4 stars. Am I
I
correct?
did like it.
Okay. So tell me, what did you like? Let's have some positivity now.
Okay, so I mean, you already know. I just think Mrs. Pringle is kind of a character you love to hate, and I just find her amusing, and I I like backstories, I guess, even when they're not like tragic. Like I liked seeing how like Miss Reed came to like have be like beaten down and have her in her house. Because I like through this whole series so far, I thought like you can't stand this woman. Like, do they force you as the teacher of the school to like let this woman clean your house? Like, is it like a rectory or something that they just have people that have to clean it? I was like, why would you do this? You don't like this woman. So it was just funny to see that backstory. And then I did like the touches of seeing that she actually does have a heart. Like when she gave, who was it? Joseph Cobbs. Yeah. Mm-hmm. When she gave him the gloves. Mm-hmm. And then, there was another one and it's completely escaped me. But
when someone passed away.
What's that?
When someone passed away, is that what you're thinking?
Oh, yes, that she was sad when the one older lady passed away. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yes. I mean, like, you could see that like there is somebody with emotion in there somewhere.
way
down deep. But yeah, I don't know. I think because I like backstories. Now, I like backstories that aren't quite like the backstory Mitford book. I did not like that one. But
yes. No, I would agree. The backstory Miss Reed books I definitely prefer to the backstory Mitford books.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because we had Miss Claire and that was really good. And yeah. So, and I feel like, well, like Elizabeth was telling us in the chat today that she wished it was longer. I thought too it was a perfect length. I mean, obviously Kate did, but I thought it was a good length too because I mean it's a backstory book, so you don't need to belabor it if there's not any like real change in the character. I feel like it was more a book that like showed how Miss Reed and Mrs. Pringle Mrs. Pringle started out. So, and then like, and then you actually get to see Fred, her husband that we always hear about.
Yes.
So he seems kind of like he seems like a kind of downtrodden individual.
Yes, he does. Downtrodden and long suffering. And I second Elizabeth that I was surprised about this.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. That was interesting.
Yes.
So I don't know. I think I just like to see the especially like kind of curmudgeonly characters. I kind of like to see like where they came from. Although I kind of agree with you that I would have liked to have seen her have like more reason for being like that instead of just she was born that like that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. There is something really charming to me about curmudgeonly characters because then once the layers are peeled back and you get to know them, then it's like,
Mhm.
oh. So if she had, it's like if she just had a little bit more sweetness to her.
Yeah.
Um, and
And I think
then,
like
oh,
go
sorry.
ahead. I was just gonna say that I
I
think
just, yes,
she like always throughout all the books kind of like shows that she's helpful, like because
yes.
when Mrs. Reed broke her arm or whatever, she helped her and like didn't ask her, she just did it. So she does have good qualities. They're just real deep down in there.
And this from Elizabeth Brink, it really bothers me. Miss Reed gets so much persecution about being untidy.
I know
And
she does.
I would even say kind of more cluttered. Like I feel like the standard for Mrs. Pringle is so high that if there's just kind of a speck of dust, it's like she walks in with her metaphorical clipboard to any house to like see how if it passes her inspection.
But it's funny because every
And I mean,
picture.
I would love.
Go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
But it's just every picture that you see of her, she looks so slovenly in all the drawings, but then like she's like this taskmaster when it comes to the houses and schools and things.
It's really funny. Oh. So Chelsea, what did you think of Mrs. Pringle, A Fair Acre?
I was a little bit disappointed by it. It wasn't my favorite so far. I was hoping we would, kind of like you, I was hoping for a tragic backstory, but I was also hoping that we would get more from Miss Pringle's perspective, kind of more like the Emily Davis and Miss Clare books.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Whereas this was like kind of like a normal Miss Reed book with just some Miss Pringle anecdotes kind of sprinkled throughout.
Mm-hmm.
I was hoping we'd get inside Miss Pringle's head and kind of get her perspective more, and we didn't, which kind of made me sad. The other couple things that annoyed me is I found that it was kind of written in a bit of a weird circular way where there's like flashback. I could never really figure out what time period we were in.
Mm-hmm.
Because we went back to the beginning, but then it was like kind of forward. And then I was like, is this back? Are we reading from back at the beginning of Miss Reed being at the school? And then there would be something where I'm like, oh no, this is actually like past the last book that we just read last month. So I never really knew like where we were in the timeline once Miss Reed was at the school with her.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously we got those like one or two little childhood flashbacks, but then from that point on, also it was covering a lot of ground that we'd already covered. Because we went back to redo, like you said, like there was a lot of like redoing Joseph Coggs and redoing Minnie Pringle, and I'm like, we've done these storylines already. Which is a problem I kind of have with books that are series anyway, when they like retell, like every time you get introduced to a character in a book, they retell you like, oh, she's my university friend. I'm like, I'm well aware. I understand that it's good if someone's coming into it as a standalone. It's great. You could totally pick up, I feel like, any of the books in Fair Acre, read it, and not be at all confused. Mm-hmm. But when you have read all of them, and every time they have to reintroduce like who Minnie Pringle is, I know.
Trust me, we know.
I think the part that I found the most interesting was when that old lady, I think her name was Miss Parr or Miss
Parr, yeah. Mm-hmm.
When she passed away, it was interesting to me because there was that scene where Miss Reed went to comfort Mrs. Pringle, kind of. And Mrs. Pringle said something along the lines of, like, she stood up for me when no one else would, and I almost lost my job.
Mm-hmm.
And Miss Reed pretty much discounts that and assumes that whatever the village gossip is about that whole situation is true, and is just like, oh, that's weird that she thinks that about Miss Parr when everyone knows it was like this. And I'm like, but maybe it wasn't. Like,
Yeah, you'd think
that's why I'm like, man, I would love to get Miss Pringle's perspective, because it seems like Miss Reed was just kind of like, oh, well, she's kind of lying about her relationship with Miss Parr.
Mhm.
Gossip says it was like this, and Henry was innocent, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah. It would have been nice to have gotten more firsthand perspective.
Yeah.
I think Miss Reed just didn't want to spend that much time with Mrs. Pringle.
Yeah, maybe.
She was like,
let's,
yeah.
let's just count our blessings though. So far, we have not had a whole book on Minnie.
oh,
Katie, did you just speak it into it? Did you manifest that book? Like, is the next one going to be all about Minnie?
Oh my gosh, I hope
the
not.
return of Minnie Pringle.
Stop! I would actually, it would drive me to DNF it. You know what? There's just sometimes, people have irrational fears, and sometimes there are characters that irrationally bother you, and Minnie is just one of those characters.
Mm-hmm. Oh, she bothers me.
Yes. So this is interesting. Chelsea, you talking about kind of the repetition with reintroducing people. So Sharon says that P.G. Woodhouse has a funny paragraph about that subject in The Code of the Woosters. So that would be fun to.
I'll have to check it out.
Back and,
That drives me crazy.
Yeah.
It's especially bad. The Alexander McCall Smith Scotland Street series. I lost my mind trying to read those, because not only is it like serial, but it was a serialized novel. So within the book, he's like reintroducing the characters to you, because if you had read it serialized, I guess maybe that was like 3 months ago, but in my mind it's like 20 minutes ago, and I'm like, I can't be reintroduced, like having the relationships kind of re-explained in like a little throwaway sentence. That's crazy.
Chelsea, it's funny too, because that's also a thing in Korean dramas where something will happen to a character, and my husband, when he's watched with me, he'll be like, I'm glad they really edit this for everyone that has 30-second memory retention. So something will happen, and in the same episode, they'll do a flashback. It's not even something from a previous episode. And it's some do it more frequently than others. And I understand more they'll flash back to something from the past, and gradually you get like all these little pieces, but sometimes they just tease it so much. Yeah, so
I wouldn't be able to watch that. I would. I'm with your husband on that one. That would kill me. I wonder if, like, when it's shown on Korean TV, if it is cut up into smaller episodes and then like merged together for.
I mean, like,
maybe they're like 20 minutes.
Netflix ones that do it, like, made for Netflix.
Okay. There's no defense then. I was trying, but.
Good job, Chelsea.
So Elizabeth says, I was laughing so hard when Miss Reed heard about Henry from Mrs. Willett, and Mrs. Willett says he went to foreign parts. Miss Reed is thinking America or India. Mrs. Willett means still in England. That's like, it really is all relative. Like, I love that. My aunt one time was in a restaurant, and somebody said, "Oh, are you from this area?" And they said, "No, I'm from," and then they named a place 20 minutes away. And so that was like that. No, that's not the area at all.
And it's funny because where I'm from, I'll tell people I'm from Pittsburgh, even though I'm from an hour away, because like people don't, like, they've heard of Pittsburgh, but they're not going to know my tiny little town. So like, if you're within like a hour distance or something, you're from the Pittsburgh area, you know?
Yes.
I live in a pretty small town. We're like 20,000 people.
Yeah.
But there's another town like 20 minutes away that's really small. And there was one time I was in a taxi and just, making small talk on my way to the airport. And the driver was like, "Oh yeah, I grew up in the very small town. Couldn't wait to get out of there. Moved away as soon as I was done high school. I'm like, you moved 20 minutes to a and it's not that different. Like, people literally commute from the one town to where I work. Like, you didn't get out. It's not really that different. There's not like so many more things to do or anything. Like, it's still pretty rural.
Thank you, Sharon, for typing it up. She says, if I take it for granted that my public knows all about Gussie Finknottle and just breeze ahead, those publicans who weren't hanging on my lips the first time are apt to be fogged.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Hanging on my lips. Any more kind of upfront thoughts on Mrs. Pringle, Chelsea?
No, that's everything.
Okay. Oh, and then here's the second part of the quote. Whereas if before kicking off, I give about 8 volumes of the man's life and history, other bimbos who were so hanging will stifle yawns and murmur old stuff. Get on with it.
That's me.
You can't make everyone happy. You just can't make everyone happy. And I mean, there is sometimes, I remember when first reading the Harry Potter books, like,
I was just going to say that.
having a little bit of, telling you, oh, and that's that person is like, oh, right.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice there. But she does it in like 2 sentences.
Yeah.
Well, I think it also depends on like how many characters you have. Like, this is like Amy and Minnie Pringle and stuff. And I'm like, these are like leading characters. It's not, I don't mind as much when it's like, I don't know, Mr. Monet or whatever, who's kind of a minor. You kind of forget who he is every book. And then you're like, right, the bird guy.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
That quote is so funny.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say we could go on to Angie, but I'm assuming Kate will want to be back for that. I just remember, I'll continue the Harry Potter thing. I didn't read it until I was, like, the last book hadn't come out yet, but the other ones had. So my friend would lend them to me because he had read them. He was one of those people that read them all as they came out. And so he let me like all the first 6 or whatever. So I read them kind of back to back. I mean, I kind of took my time, but I read them back to back. There was so much backstory, like and each book, gets longer. And I was like, oh my gosh, are we going to summarize the last book every single time? Like, I just read this. I remember what happened.
It's like, I don't know if any of you grew up watching the TV show Heartland. I think it was a Canadian show, but it might have been in the US.
I've heard of it, yeah.
It's like a horse farm show. And they would always start with
obsessed with the books.
Oh yeah. I read the books a lot, and then the TV, they started doing a TV show on our national broadcaster. But they would always start with like previously in Heartland and do the little recap. And that just became like a phrase in our family, like when we need to do backstory to a story. It was like previously in Heartland. And then okay, now.
That's great. I love it when they're kind of inside jokes within a family.
Yeah.
Or when there used to be continued shows.
Yes.
And you'd have to wait a whole week to watch the next episode. I mean, geez.
Unless you watch a soap opera, and then you get it every day.
That's true. Every day, multiple times a day.
Yes. So then that leaves Angie. Angie, so nice to have you here. And what did you think?
I liked the length of the book. Normally, the mystery books, even though I like them a lot, tend to get very detailed. And so sometimes I just kind of feel like saying, wrap it up, Miss Reed. We need to move on. This one, I did not do that at all because it was just the perfect length. And Miss Pringle, for some reason, like if I had to deal with a Miss Pringle in real life, I would feel very intimidated. Mm-hmm. But I like her in the book. I think she's a little prickly, obviously. And she's kind of, what's the word, brusque?
Yeah. Brusque.
But I feel like all of the other characters know how to handle her. Like they don't let her walk over them. They know how to handle her and how to kind of like put her in her place. So I guess maybe that's one reason why I don't mind her as a character, because yes, she has her, her ways, but the other characters already know how to deal with her. So I don't feel like yeah, sometimes she does get the last word when she's talking to Miss Reed at the schoolhouse, but to me that's more comical. But yeah, I don't mind Miss Pringle. But then again, Emma in Mitford didn't bother me either. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know why that is, because I would feel like somebody who gets intimidated easily would not like those two characters, but I didn't mind them. Yeah. But yeah, like you guys said, I would have liked things from her perspective. And yeah, I think it would have added more to the story. The one thing I was thinking, Kate, when you mentioned that you wanted more, wanted something tragic, it's like I remember when I was working as a pharmacy technician, there was this elderly woman. She was one of our customers. She was one of the meanest women, people in general I had ever met. Just mean, absolutely mean. And I always wondered, I thought, what happened to her in her life to make her so mean? But then when I was in college one year, I had a our TA, no, not TA, RA?
RA, yeah. I think
RA?
well, that's what we called it in my school.
Yeah. I think that's what it was. She was one of the meanest girls I had ever met. Mean, just downright ugly. And I thought, you know what? I think some people don't necessarily need to have something bad happen in their life to make them mean. They're just mean. It's just who they are. And so that's what I was thinking of with Miss Pringle. She's just prickly. I don't know. She may not have, a tragic backstory. She's just born prickly, I think.
Ooh. Okay, I have a theory. That these people, all right, this is a little out there, but they have some chronic ailment that they've always lived with, so they don't even know they have the chronic ailment. It's like, like, and so sometimes if you just always lived with it, you don't realize. So then on the completely nice end of people is Naomi from Naomi's Bookshelf, but she said she always had migraines and she didn't even realize that she didn't realize that was abnormal until she just would tell her parents all the time, like, my head really hurts. And I know that when I did student teaching, it was with a 4th grade class, and the one teacher was like, if you had met this kid, his name was Jared, if you had met him last year, he was the meanest kid. And then they found out he had a brain tumor. And they got rid of the brain tumor, and he was like sweet as could be.
Aw. Oh man.
So
what you're saying is maybe Mrs. Pringle has a tumor.
Oh, this is Elizabeth.
Maybe yes,
but only conveniently when she needs it to be. It's like Mrs. Pringle, that's like her poor nerves. No one has compassion on her poor nerves.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then, okay, I did find one of the things that I noted, and this just made me laugh. So it says, talking about splash 'em. The idea is to wait until a child stays near a puddle, and they mentioned this in another one, and then to jump heavily into the water, sending a cascade over the victim. The harder you jump, the higher the spray, and it has been known to drench a small child from the neck down. Wild cries of "splash 'em" accompany this simple pursuit and roars of laughter. It is a game which I forbid in the playground with some success. But what happens on the way home, I shudder to think, despite my exhortations. And I feel that as a teacher, that would be so stressful, because if you're a parent, you're like, oh, it's my kids. Like, if they get dirty, they get dirty. But as a teacher, you have the stress of like, some parent's going to march down to the school and be like, I can't believe you let my kid play this. And Angie is nodding along.
She's like, uh-huh.
And Angie, didn't you say a kid was running on the playground and ran into a pole?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Oh, they went by. Yes. 3 years ago, I had a student, who was running, and he was being chased by another student, and he happened to turn around to look to see if the student was following. And right at that moment, he slammed into a pole, knocked out a couple of his teeth.
Oh my.
Yeah, and it was bad. His parents told me that every year he had a major accident at school, and so that was. I felt really terrible because I felt like I should have been watching him. Which I mean, I was. I'm looking at my kids as they're playing on the blacktop, and I did see him. No, I don't think I saw him run, but I didn't see him turn around. It was another student who told me he turned around right as he was about to hit the pole. Yeah, I felt terrible. I thought for sure the parents were going to scream at me, but then the dad was like, "No, he has a major accident every year." Okay. Thank you.
So they know their kid. And
he's a little boy. He's gonna
like. I've heard kids on cushioned playgrounds actually get more injuries because they don't fall they don't know how to fall the right way. But he was on like hard blacktop, and he still being a
no. One year I was trying to get my kids to play a game not a cooperative game, but a game together because I thought, I think it was during COVID when we really couldn't get on the equipment. We just the kids had to play. That's why they were on the blacktop because they were running. So I tried to get them to play that one game. I don't know the name. Slap the wig. I don't know. The kids are holding on. They're interconnected. Like their hands are. They're holding onto each other's hands, and they make one line. And one kid runs and tries to snap through the line of students. Snap the wig. Something like that. And so we did it a couple of times, and then at one point I realized, oh my gosh, I am asking for a student to break an elbow because like some of them would hold on really tight and then they couldn't, and the kid who was trying to break through would do it really quickly and really hard. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I need to stop this. So after a couple of, but no, I'm asking for trouble.
Isn't that also the same game as Red Rover?
I was just thinking that.
Okay.
It's like a variation on that.
Yeah, I was trying to think. It's like something like a dog, but I don't think that's a dog. I was like, oh yeah, Red Rover.
Say Red Rover, send Susie right over, and then
yes.
Yeah. That was a game I never played in school. I don't know. Nobody at my school ever played that game.
Well, no broken elbows then.
Well, that's true. Apparently, the teachers were like, "No, we are not going to have
smarter than me."
Elizabeth played it at youth.
Maybe they learned from experience.
I also really liked when Miss Reed. She never takes her beautiful location for granted. And she says, I thought of the glimpses one gets from the train running into London, showing vast open plan offices with row upon row of desks, strong overhead lighting, and a regiment of workers as confined as battery hens. No doubt these soulless places had windows hermetically sealed and a system of air conditioning liable to give the unfortunate inmates sinus trouble, sore throats, and headaches. How much better to have one's shoes clogged with the pale, chalky mud of the downs, despite the wrath of Mrs. Pringle. At least our lungs were filled with exhilarating fresh air and we were bursting with energy.
That sounds like my soulless office.
It's just the reflecting, kind of stepping back and taking note of the beautiful things. It's fun to me that Miss Reed she's like willing to go to like verbally spar with Mrs. Pringle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's not intimidated by her.
Like the cost is too high to me.
Your mental health is important.
So Angie, what were you about to say?
Oh, no. Well, when you were reading the quote, I was going to say, I have a quote, and I think it might come from the same passage that you quoted. Maybe. It's really quick. I just wrote this one down. She wrote, the hedges were heavy with summer foliage, still starred here and there with late wild roses and the creamy flat heads of elder flowers. The grass on the roadside banks was sun-bleached, and as the bus swished by, it undulated like ripe corn before a strong wind. I like that passage.
Yeah.
Mm.
She's very, very good at her nature description.
Yes.
Mhm.
But
Yes.
it doesn't go on too long though either.
Right.
Sometimes, like, I'll say that in my time with Victorian literature, sometimes I'm like, okay, I don't need more talking about that flower. We can move on.
We get the picture.
Yeah. It's a pretty flower. Okay, let's get back to
Yes.
But Miss Reed just has the right amount of nature description, and then she gets back to the story.
Yes. I feel like she paused it, then she's like, oh, right, what was I talking about?
Yeah. I actually read the audio or listened to the audiobook for this one, so I actually got to hear it in a British accent.
I am jealous.
And I'm not sure who it was, but I feel like it's a narrator I've heard before. I'll have to see if I can find it again.
Did you enjoy her
Yeah.
voice?
Yeah, it was good. I'm never quite sure how old Miss Reed is because I feel like we jump around in time so much that I'm not sure who she is or like how old she is at different points. But
Yes.
this lady sounded a little old, but for what my vision of Miss Reed was at that time, but she was good at it. She changed voice for Mrs. Pringle a couple of times. So.
Yeah, maybe it was this narrator because Elizabeth brings it.
Okay.
And I imagine
Yeah,
there's not many audiobooks of.
Yeah, that's the only one I could find of this whole series.
I did double check my library to see if they had it, but they did not. Oh, this and Sharon says, I've read Miss Reed for so long, I don't know if I could handle someone else's voice reading it. Sometimes you're like, whoa, it's like intrusive.
Yeah. It was a little bit weird because even though I know it's in England, I don't read it in a British accent. So
Yes.
Which sometimes I do because I'm, what do they call that? Sublingual, where I have to read every word. So that's why I'm such a slow reader.
Oh.
And so sometimes I do try to put an accent to it, but I just haven't for these. And so, and then sometimes I have talk to text on Kindle read it to me. So, like, to me, it's a Americanized voice because the Siri or whatever she is the one, or no, it would be Alexa is reading it to me. So, oh, sorry, I might have said it too loud. Sorry for anybody. But, so it's like that voice usually. So then this was the first one that I actually heard in a British accent, and I was like, this is so weird. I'm like, oh yeah, they actually are in England. But it was nice.
That's so funny.
Maybe that's why I liked it too, because it just gave it more of a coziness, because it sounded like where it was supposed to be.
Actually, it's really funny. That makes me think of an Australian friend that I have. She was talking about when she saw the Little Women movie for the first time, which she meant the Winona Ryder one.
Okay.
And she's like, oh, I was really hoping for some like very strong Southern drawls as I was watching it, and it wasn't there. And so I think just the United States, to her, everyone had a Southern accent. It's funny. We're all just
That's
always
funny.
going, Alexa, stop. If my name was Alexa, I would be so annoyed.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I can't imagine anybody can name their kid that anymore.
Yes.
Like, that's gonna become like a dead name because nobody can do it.
Yes. They should have picked a more like robot name.
Yeah, like, because Siri, who names their kid that? Like, I've never heard that name before. I'm sure it's somewhere.
Yeah.
But
Katie Holmes and Tom Cruise, their daughter is Siri.
Oh, is it Surrey or is it Surrey?
Oh, you know what? You're right.
Surrey.
It's
I don't
Surrey.
know. Okay.
Yes.
It makes me think of a horse
Look,
carriage.
Elizabeth is in the chat.
Hi, Elizabeth.
I Hi, Elizabeth.
We discussed
Elizabeth,
your
tell
pot.
people what you thought about Mrs. Pringle in the chat, and I'll share it.
Yes.
Because we're running out of stuff to say about it. It was a very, very short one.
Half of
What-
the screen
what did
liked it,
everyone-
and half of the screen did not.
What did everyone think of the Mrs. Pringle name reveal being Maud?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I'm fully on board.
Yeah.
Shocking new information.
Yeah, see, we got some shocking
No, it was, but it wasn't. Like, as
Yeah,
soon as I heard it, I was like, that makes complete sense.
Well, it's an odd name because, like, I think of Maud Hart Lovelace, and
Yeah.
I think of her as being very, I mean, she wrote Betsy Tacy, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and so I think of her as being, lovely and delicate, and then you've got Maud Pringle.
I know.
I always
Well,
think of Lucy Maud.
Yeah, Lucy Maud.
Yeah.
Maud. Yeah.
Yes.
I think of her as being lovely too.
Yes. Yeah, so Elizabeth says she liked it. She wished there had been more, and she enjoyed meeting her as a young person. Yeah, that was I like that there were some drawings when she was younger too.
Yeah. Oh, which I didn't get
Um,
since I was using audio. I forgot about that.
oh,
I'll have to go back and
Oh.
find the Kindle
Fine.
copy. I didn't even think about that.
yeah.
That was what was missing.
Oh, okay. This is a very cute picture.
Okay.
So there she is with the ducks.
Oh, yes.
Harassing the ducks.
It's so cute until you know what she is doing.
Which that to me is so Victorian looking, like the black dress with the white pinafore and the
Yeah.
black tights.
Mhm.
Mary Jane's. Or they're more like boots, I guess, Mary Jane's.
Yeah.
One of the things I liked about this book, and I'm sure it's in all her books, but in this book, it took me down some rabbit trails where they would quote certain passages from literature that I wasn't familiar with. And so I would go and research. And I just thought of that because of the ducks. There was one, she says a line, one of the lines that she quotes is, in troubled times, I turn to ducks. Beautiful, comical things, something like that. And so that's a poem. I didn't know. I had no idea. And then she quoted a line from Mansfield Park, which I have not read Mansfield Park in ages, and I didn't realize that line was from Mansfield Park. It's when her and her friend are sitting. They've just arrived at the cottage where she's going to live, and they're sitting there admiring the view. And she quotes Mansfield Park. I didn't know it was from Mansfield Park.
Oh. That's cool. Yeah, there is. It's like very rich with everything, all of these kind of cultural references.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the quote was, "From troubles of the world, I turn to ducks, beautiful, comical things."
So that was from Mansfield Park?
No, that was from a poem.
Okay. I was like, that
I was
doesn't
like,
seem
I don't
like
remember
Mansfield
ducks in Mansfield Park.
Mansfield Park has something to do about greenery.
Okay.
Something about sitting in the verdant something. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That sounds more like it.
That reminds me of an Instagram video I watched today with little baby ducks going down a water slide.
Oh, stop it. Any
Beautiful,
video with little
comical
baby
things.
ducks. Oh,
Mhm.
well, any final comments on Mrs. Pringle,
Oh,
Fairacre?
Elizabeth said something. Let's see. Oh, Mr. Pringle. Elizabeth's asking us about Mr. Pringle.
I felt bad for him.
Yeah. Oh, well, I feel like he still kind of did what he wanted to do. Like he still gave his brother money, but he
That's
just got yelled at for it. But
yes.
and Mrs. Pringle wasn't wrong. He went straight to the bar. So
True.
she was not wrong. But I also get him like, this is my brother, it's Christmas time. But he probably would have been better
Yeah.
off to like actually give it to his wife or something like that.
Yes.
But
Yes.
Well, I do wonder what it was that attracted him to Mrs. Pringle. I mean, I wonder
Yeah.
if it was just like, she's available. I need to get married. Let's just get together. Or was it something that he saw in her that attracted him? See, that would have been a good part of the story. I think a good
Yes.
plot line to add to the story.
It was very vague about it. It was kind of
Yeah.
like, I feel like she like strong-armed him into it. That's like what we're left to
She
imagine.
seems like the type.
Yeah, that would track.
Yes. Like, we're getting married. I don't know if you know this.
Yeah, just so you know. We better go get you a suit.
Yeah, Elizabeth says it seems like he didn't have a chance. She was disappointed about Henry and snapped him up.
He was her second choice, but he probably was the one that was sad in the end.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like she's like, I am a catch. I am a great option. Like, do you know what you'd be missing out on?
I did think it was funny how when they went back to the time she had surgery, and she's talking to Miss Reed because she was gonna go, like she offered to take her to the hospital or something, and she's saying how her son, I'm assuming, was gonna take her and not her husband, and I'm like, why? Like, he's there with you. Like, why wouldn't he take you?
Yeah, Elizabeth says probably wouldn't take no for an answer.
Yeah, probably not. You touched my hand one time. That means we're getting married. You must
There's
really
a bit
love
of
me.
I know. There's a bit of a plot line like that in the Pickwick Papers. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I just read that about too
She's
long
like,
ago.
I think we're basically engaged, okay?
Oh, that book was funny. I liked it.
Yes, this is a great term, steamroll.
Yes. Definitely. She steamrolls pretty much everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, Kate, I feel like everybody's used to her. So they all, like, she steamrolls, but they almost kind of let her, because they're just
terrible.
Like, I know.
I liked everyone when Miss Reed was arriving at the village. Everyone's like, "Have you met Mrs. Pringle yet? She's going to be expecting to keep cleaning and clean at your house. Just wondering if you've met her." Like, everyone that she met, like, that's their first question after they found out she was a new teacher. It's like,
They're like, don't make any waves.
yeah, just a heads up.
We really want to keep you, so I hope this isn't a deal breaker.
Yes.
Oh man, geez, if I could have somebody like basically want to clean my house for me, I wouldn't care what she was like. I'd just be like, come in and do it and leave.
You'd have to work the timing out right. When I was a nanny, the cleaning lady there, she could talk, as Marilla would say, the hind leg off a mule.
Yes,
And I remember the first time that I was like back in Swickley. Swickley was where I nannied, and I was like catty corner from the house where I used to nanny, just walking around, and I saw her go into the house, and I'm like, oh, I don't have to interact with her today.
Yay, I'm free.
Free at last.
The cleaning lady at my office is like that. She just, if she comes early, I'm always like, oh, I want to leave on time.
Can I like make myself invisible?
Yeah.
Is that
I see her carpool
something I
and
can
sometimes, and I'm just like,
uh,
she's
I'm
a
gonna go to the
nice
bathroom
lady.
for an hour?
Oh, well, usually when she comes that early, she actually is in a hurry, so she doesn't
Okay.
talk
Oh,
too
that's
long.
good.
But yeah, oh, it's funny.
Yes. Oh yeah, and here we go. See, what is this? These office ladies. Oh my goodness.
Office ladies, man.
Plant watering doesn't take long enough either. So I feel like they can like be
Oh
super
yeah,
chatty.
you have a lady just to water your plants at work. That's awesome. That's cool.
Apparently.
Plant watering lady. I've never heard of such a thing.
That's so funny. Well, you know what? Okay. You know what would be so funny, Elizabeth? What if she just was a rando who was lonely and so she just came in and watered the plants?
Yeah. And you're like,
And
oh, she
then
works here.
no one realizes she's not on the payroll.
She just
But that
wants
would be
friends.
sad if someone was
It
that
would be.
lonely, like they went to those lengths. Aw.
Oh gosh.
Well, thank you everyone for participating in the Mrs. Pringle of Fairacre discussion. And yes, contributing in the chat. Thank you everyone who showed up. And Elizabeth, we missed you this month. And yeah, if you're watching this back later on, I hope that you enjoyed it and enjoyed it more than I did. And so unfortunately, I was talking to the ladies in our group chat, and I'm just slightly burnt out from running. I have like 3 different book clubs that I run. And so we're actually going to take a break we were already going to take a break in October, but we're going to take a break in September as well. So we will be back and better than ever in November with changes at Fairacre. And just to entice you, all the way in November, it just the synopsis says that times are changing at the charming downland village of Fairacre, and Miss Reed isn't certain that it's all for the best. The new commuter lifestyle has caused a drop in attendance at the local school, and officials are threatening what, ladies?
To close the school.
Miss Reed worries about the failing health of Dolly Claire. Vegetable gardens have given way to trips to the Caxley markets, and the traditional village fete now includes a prize for best quiche. Oh, the people are going to be salty about whoever wins.
Maybe we'll have a quiche
Best
of death.
quiche? Did you say best quiche?
Yes.
Maybe we should have maybe we should incorporate food into our next like we did for Mitford into our next meeting. Let's each make our own quiche. Quiche Lorraine.
That's a great idea, except there's like 6 things in quiche I can't have.
Oh no. I
can make a gluten-free crust.
Ooh,
I feel like
I'm just gonna eat crust.
I made a vegan quiche once that was like blended tofu. I'm trying to think if it was really good. I like tofu. I know it sounds like nasty.
No, I think I can't have tofu either. So that's why I said, because I love tofu, and they always put cubes of it in. What's the miso soup?
Miso soup.
Yeah. So we'll figure something out. I'll bring a fake quiche. And
just don't bring a quiche of death.
Honestly, at this point, I'm hoping for some actual drama that they actually close this school. Like,
I know.
I'm a hater.
Chelsea's like, listen, just deliver or stop talking about it.
You've seen it so many times. I want to see what would happen. Like, give me the drama, the small town drama when the school closes.
Well, and I think I was very stressed out about it before because we didn't know where she'd live. But now
exactly.
We know that she has a place.
Stakes are so low now because I'm like, go into your nice thatched cottage. Like,
and I would love more scenes with Miss Claire. So I would love it actually if she just went ahead and moved in. Is it a 2-bedroom cottage? I think It's a 2-bedroom
Yeah.
cottage.
Well,
That's
yeah,
because
'cause-
Emily used to live with her.
Yes. Just move in now. They both love each other.
maybe she will,
Oh,
because
well,
if
thank you,
Mrs.
everyone. Oh, I'm sorry, Rainey.
Oh,
I
sorry.
keep interrupting.
No, I was just gonna say maybe she will if Mrs. Claire's health is failing. Maybe she will to take care of her.
Oh, good point.
Mm.
And the title is Changes at Fairacre.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it doesn't look like it would be.
No.
Well, thank you, everyone. And I hope you all have a lovely weekend. And we'll be back after a couple months.
Remember.
See ya. Bye.